My son's fiancée ordered me to pay for their wedding. When I refused, she took me to court. My name is Johnsy, and I am 63 years old. The day the court summons arrived, I was standing in my narrow kitchen, holding a chipped mug of tea that had gone cold in my hands. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window, the kind of gentle rain that usually comforts old men like me. But that morning the sound felt like a warning. The envelope was white, plain, official. It didn't look dangerous. But when I read the words printed on it, my heart sank in a way I had never felt before. I was being sued. Not by a stranger. Not by an enemy. But by my own son's fiancée. For a long moment I just stood there, staring at her name, wondering how love could turn into paperwork, how family could turn into evidence. A life of quiet sacrifice. I raised my son Daniel on the kind of money that disappears before you can thank it. After my wife passed away 12 years earlier, our home became too quiet, too empty. Grief took its time with us. Some days it sat at the table with us while we ate. Other days it followed me onto the bus I drove for a living, riding silently beside me as I took strangers from one stop to another. I had dreams once, small ones, a little house with a garden, a few peaceful years of retirement, but life, as it often does, had other plans. Hospital bills ate my savings. Daniel's education took whatever was left. I never regretted a single penny. When you love someone, you don't keep receipts. So when Daniel came to me, eyes shining with excitement, and told me he was engaged, my heart lifted in a way I hadn't felt in years. My boy is building a life, I thought. That's all a father ever wants. The price of love. But Joy quickly learned the weight of numbers. Sophie wanted a wedding that looked like something from a magazine. Crystal chandeliers, imported flowers, a venue overlooking a lake, a guest list full of people whose names I couldn't pronounce and whose faces I didn't recognize. Daniel sat across from me at my small dining table, rubbing his hands together like a nervous child. "Dad," he said, "Sophie says the groom's family usually pays. She's already booked the hall." I smiled weakly. "And how much is all this beauty?" He whispered the amount. The number didn't just surprise me, it frightened me. It was more than I earned in a year. "Son," I said gently, "I can help, I can give what I can, but I can't give what I don't have." The disappointment in his eyes cut deeper than any insult, but what hurt more was the way Sophie later spoke to me. Public shame. At a family gathering with her relatives watching, Sophie laughed lightly and said, "I suppose some people think love is enough, but love doesn't pay for venues, does it, Mr. Johnsy?" Her eyes flicked toward my worn shoes, toward my simple clothes, toward the life I had lived honestly. I felt small. Not because I was poor, but because I was being made to feel ashamed of it. That night I went home and sat in the dark, listening to the old clock tick on the wall. Every tick felt like a reminder of time I could never buy back, time I had spent giving everything I had to my son. The lawsuit. When the court papers arrived, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped them. Sophie claimed I had promised to pay, that I had ruined her dream wedding, that I had caused her emotional suffering. I laughed at first, then the laughter turned into something close to a sob. I had promised to support my son, not to bankrupt myself for a party. In court I spoke not as a rich man, not as a powerful man, but as a tired father. "I gave my son my youth," I said softly. "I gave him my strength. If love could be turned into money, I would be the richest man here, but it can't." The judge listened, and for the first time in months I felt seen. The ruling was in my favor. Winning and losing. I walked out of the courthouse legally victorious and emotionally defeated. Daniel did not walk beside me. He chose Sophie. He chose comfort. He chose the illusion of luxury over the quiet truth of love. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Days passed, then months. My phone stayed silent. On my birthday, I bought myself a small cake and ate it alone, telling myself that loneliness was easier than being used. Time's gentle revenge. Years later, Daniel returned. The marriage had collapsed under debt and disappointment. The wedding that had cost so much had brought so little happiness. He stood in my doorway, eyes tired, voice low. I thought money would make life easier, he said. It only made my mistakes more expensive. I opened the door wider. Come in, son, I said. Home is not a place you pay to enter. Final morals. Money can buy a wedding. It cannot buy a marriage. Parents are not responsible for funding their children's fantasies. Children are responsible for honoring their parents' sacrifices. If you build your life on entitlement, it will collapse under its own weight. If you build it on gratitude, even a small home can feel like a palace.